everybody, and welcome to another podcast of Reluctant Hero. This this podcast has been designed by me in an effort to bring more inspiration to average everyday people by sharing stories of others who have experienced some reluctance in their full expression, and I've asked them how they have overcome that so that when they share their stories, you can also learn and benefit from that, and maybe you can take some wisdom from that and apply it to your own lives. So, with that, today we have a guest, Arman, and he's a longevity coach. I will let him introduce himself, but he has a very interesting story to tell. So, Arman, please let us know who you are.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I've been involved with health and fitness for the last 40 years. I'm 60 years old, so I got into learning about aging in my later 40s, and so based on that, I was a certified personal trainer, and also did a lot of wellness consulting for companies. But then, as time went by, as I learned more about aging, now they have certifications. I got a certification for how to coach on longevity, which was, exciting. It's through the Spencer Institute is where I got that from. So, and then with that, I just work with business owners, business professionals that are looking to, again, turn things around because they're at a point in their life where they've worked so hard and done so much to sacrifice to get to where they are that they let their health and their physique, and it starts affecting your confidence, and your relationships with your spouse. I mean, it can get kind of messy because of how you feel psychologically. It's just one of many things.
Yeah, that is a fascinating story. And what led you to become the longevity coach of all of other things?
When I was growing up, first and foremost, I was an athlete, so that was a good experience for me, and I really enjoyed being an athlete. But my mother was heavy. And so I saw the grief that, she had to deal with and she wasn't heavy by any means compared to what heavy is today. But, there's a lot of criticism that comes with it because people don't understand the situation. And there wasn't a lot of good knowledge about she tried a lot of things to try to improve her weight, that, they weren't working. Anyway, so I saw what was happening to her. Then when I got done with high school, I couldn't continue my sports. I played basketball. So when I was a senior in high school, I was 5'5", 120 pounds. So I was a pretty small, skinny guy to begin with. And I also got picked on a lot, which that kind of motivated me to learn about strength training after I saw a picture of Arnold on a magazine in my senior year in high school. So I was looking at that and I thought, well, I could protect myself if I had a good physique, because, a lot of it's image anyways. And so that kind of led me to take that step. I wanted to be able to control not getting heavy, because my sister was also heavy, but then she turned that around later on. And that impacted me because I didn't want to go through that because I got picked on, which sucked. But at the same time, it's like, all right, well, you got to deal with it. So, and there wasn't any martial arts places where I lived. I grew up in a really small town. So we just had a YMCA and I just started with that. So I did bodybuilding, you know, after I got during college. And then when I got out of college, and I was even competing and winning shows, but the realization when this was going on was, the late 80s, early 90s. And so if I wanted to go to become a professional at that point, that required taking drugs. And that wasn't, I watched what guys were doing with that. And I'm like, and especially in those times, you got an attaboy for winning a trophy, but there's no money in it. So you're taking all these health risks. And it's like, this isn't really what I'm all about. I just want to be healthy and keep my body weight in check. So I just continue to train. I really enjoy training and learning about it because being an athlete, you're kind of built into your system, so to speak, eating good and that kind of stuff. And so as time went by, you learn all these things. And I've done everything wrong you could probably do with experimentation, because, there's so many bad studies out there and so much bad information you have to filter through. And that's what I still do that today. I sort through as best I can. I try it to see if I can help somebody. But as time went by, I was pretty much bulletproof. I didn't really feel like I had any issues. And then, had started having children when I was 38. We kind of waited on that. And then as time went by, I noticed in my mid 40s, things are still pretty good. But then and the next year, I started noticing not having the same kind of energy, the same kind of recovery. My strength level wasn't the same, and it wasn't, I wasn't waking up with the same kind of drive and zip that I was always having. And so it's like, wow, so what's going on? I changed my nutrition again, changed my training up, and I was still kind of flatlining. I wasn't really getting a good response. So then I decided I got a book that I got from Life Extension at the time, which was a company that sells supplements. It's a very good company. And I was reading this book and it talked about aging and what the causes of it were at that point in time, which was only four basic causes, inflammation, oxidation, methylation, and then glycation. We won't get into the details of that, but that's what causes it. At that time, that was what they were working on. So that was fascinating. But then also part of that was like understanding hormones. And I didn't really think much about hormones. Now, in the bodybuilding world, yeah, they do a lot of hormone stuff, but I wasn't doing that. So I was like just using my natural hormone system, which is what you should be doing. But what I also learned is, at the age of 25, from that point, you typically lose 2% a year of your hormones in a really small fashion. So you don't really notice a lot. But after 20 years, in a best case scenario, you're down about 40% based on that, So it was like, all right, so what do you do for that? So then I had to go through a whole nother curve of learning all the complexity of how hormones work. And so as you do that, then there wasn't much about age reversal, anti-aging. They just felt like with hormone therapy and hormone strategies that would help the aging process because it revitalizes you. And the reason for that is because hormones are the messengers that tell your body how to operate. So if you don't have adequate amounts of those functioning, it's going to start affecting everything else. And then on top of just, not eating right, not getting enough sleep, too much alcohol and other things you abuse your body with, that takes its toll. So got more fascinated by how these things work. And then the longevity thing actually, was studying that, how to slow down aging indirectly, not knowing how it's all going to evolve. Things have really skyrocketed the last 24 months, in my opinion. So I'm actually going to attend my first biohacker conference, which is going to be in Miami later this month. So, biohacker is somebody that studies all this kind of stuff, but doesn't have a medical license, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at. I was like, okay, so then now that I've been doing this, there's a lot more stuff that's come to the surface and things that you can do. So especially with nutrition, supplementation, exercise strategy. A lot of people have no idea on that as well. You need to understand sleep and recovery, and then how to optimize your hormone levels. And so all this requires very extensive lab work. And I started having that done. It was quite an eye opener to see what's really going on.
This is fascinating because I personally have been always interested in the nutrition and body weight training and all the aspects of fitness for the longest time. And as I was studying this kind of material over the last 10, 15 years, I
Mm.
noticed there have been so many changes. People coming up with all kinds of ideas, the blue light therapy, red light therapy, testing the genome code, testing the telomeres, whatever. There's just constantly new stuff coming up, and it could be very confusing to sort through that and figure out. And have you noticed for yourself that there's a lot of confusion that's going on in that industry, in that area?
Yeah, that probably isn't going to change for a while either. You got a lot of people kind of jockeying for, people to listen to what they have to say. So they try to do these unique phrases and comments to make them different. So, yeah, but with your point, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that it's a quality science. You just have to kind of filter through it. So I'm experimenting with, the age reversal supplements like NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide is one of them, and also NR, nicotide riboside. That's what that is a precursor for NAD levels. Okay, and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is NAD, is what you need to have energy. You have to have it to exist. If you didn't have any NAD, you'd be dead in about 30 to 45 seconds. So but those levels drop over time, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we may get into that. I don't know, but so these supplements help to improve that. Then you have other supplements like calcium glucarate, fisetin, resveratrol. So I'm experimenting with all these different strategies. But then you have the red light therapy, which I'm working on now, which is pretty fascinating. And there's a lot of good data in science. Another thing that I'm also experimenting with, which is also kind of unique, is basically hydrogen water. So there's a lot of new studies on that. So this is actually my hydrogen water bottle, and maybe you can see it's making hydrogen. I just turned it on. You can maybe bubble in there a little bit. What that does is that it helps to put oxygen in the body. It helps with inflammation. It helps with reducing oxidation. I mean, it's good for your gut health. So, and again, you can review the studies. I mean, again, I'm experimenting with that. So I've been with that for probably 2 weeks because it's a fairly new concept. But there's a lot of really cool stuff. But it's just a matter of what you want, what you're looking for in life, and then start out simple because there's a lot of simple things you can do to improve your longevity that you probably want to start with that first as well. But I mean, it's amazing how you feel once you start to make these changes. And then the clients I work with, they're pretty surprised by it, how quickly things can turn around for them. I mean, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, there's totally a lot of different things coming out on the market all the time because we have the technology to produce things like this bottle with oxygenation in. So it is amazing time to live in. But yeah, it
Mhm.
could get overwhelming, so people should start small. And so in your journey, has there been a moment where you felt reluctance towards doing this longevity things, towards doing research or going deeper into all of that?
Well, there's a lot of reluctance on a lot of things that comes down the pipe of what they're suggesting. So it's like, okay, is that something I want to do? And what are the risks? Is it worth it? What are the benefits? What are the upsides? So yeah, you're dealing with that all the time. One of them that's really interesting is cold shock therapy. And that's a pretty interesting strategy. It initiates cold shock proteins, which helps initiate the stimulation of brown fat, which helps stimulate the burning of body fat and calories and energy. But it's pretty intimidating because you're getting in 50-degree water, or you're going to a cold shower, and you need to do it for 3 to 6 minutes. And if you're not used to it, which you never get used to it, by the way, you have a lot of reluctance to want to go in there and go again because they suggest you do it, as much as you can do as much as you like, but the benefits are kind of unique, but at the same time, you also need to understand the science behind that too, is if you're trying to put on muscle tissue, that's not good for muscle tissue, which I had to learn that too. So you need to make sure you have a 2 hour window if you're ever going to do a cold shock therapy treatment. But it does reduce inflammation as well, and it help cause the body to constrict, and so it does improve blood flow as well too. So yeah, that's reluctant. There's a lot of reluctance on nutrition side. You're bombarded with all this garbage food, and they try to, well, this is kind of fun. It's all fun. You watch TV, you got pro athletes endorsing the Pepsi products, Coca-Cola, and everybody's having a great time. Same thing with alcohol. You got to have a great time. And then they're eating all this fast food, which is just toxic. But you got to understand, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to enjoy this for the short term? And then, you get kind of addicted to it because of the way it works. Or I want to be more reserved and do what's going to be better for me long term and not give me health issues. And, the food companies are doing a great job of doing what they do because they're trying to act like, it's not really a problem. What they want you to focus on is just your calories in, calories out, because what that means, you can eat anything you want and it's all on you about because you're not managing your calories, which is not true at all. I mean, calorie deficit has a certain benefit, but only if the calorie deficit is done the way it makes sense. A calorie is not a calorie. So, and we won't get into all that, but at this point, you're every day you got to wake up and decide. You're making decisions. Is this something that's good for me, or do I need to avoid it for my longevity? So that I have good energy, I have good muscle tone, I'll be good, I'll have a good confidence because I feel good, my clothes fit really good. So you got to look at all the upside, but you still have the reluctance that's popping in and out of like, so you have a lot of peer pressure. If you go to somebody's house and the whole place is stacked with processed food, and that's what they're serving, you got to figure out, okay, do I need to take a bullet for one of these for the situation, even though I know better. So you're going to be having a lot of reluctance no matter what you do if you want to be successful with longevity, with anything you're going to do. You're constantly thinking through what's going to work, what's not going to work, etc. Maybe I hope that helps.
Definitely. There's so much to always think about when we're trying to get on the right path of healthy living. There's so many things to consider. And oftentimes, as you said, peer pressure, it affects because the people who have been on the strict diet regimes, the bodybuilders, the professional bodybuilders, they have said themselves that they kind of feel alienated or they socially distance themselves for that reason because they can't go to the same parties, they don't enjoy having social outings with food at the restaurants, at the parties, because they're following their goal and they're following the direction. And that makes them kind of separated a bit. And that's the price you pay for that whatever goal you're chasing. But for everyday people, it becomes a lot harder to kind of follow that strict routine in order to get, but for longevity it is so important because you mentioned inflammation multiple times, and I
Hmm.
don't know if people know or not, but it is actually a major problem because inflammation comes from bad foods, bad fats, all kinds of environmental factors, and then if people, what they do is they just treat it with anti-inflammatory drugs like Advil without treating the underlying cause, and that I believe causes the most damage because it's not really looked at deeply enough. And so, for you, what has helped you to overcome that reluctance and resistance to doing all those things to maintain the longevity and the optimal health?
Well, one of the things that helps a lot, even for my clients, because getting blood work, people aren't real fired up about doing that either. You got to go in there and then you got to take like 4 to 8 vials of blood to analyze everything. So you're like, okay, well, I got to get this done, and so you have to overcome your fears on a regular basis. So if you do what you fear most, then you control fears. One person said, Tom Hopkins, but I think every day you're going to be reluctant to want to be consistent just because of distractions, uh, commitments that you made and other things. So you have to constantly reevaluate your decisions. Is this the best for me? And sometimes you're going to say, screw it, I'm just going to do whatever. But then you have this, you know, oh man, I think I really shouldn't have done that. And then you feel bad. So I would say the psychology of it all is really what is a factor. But if you see results quicker and you notice it, and that's what's important to my clients, and we got to get them results pretty quick because if they don't get results pretty quick, their confidence starts to drop. They don't want to make the choices that they know they have to make, and that's really what I think is really important. So when you get results, your confidence up, you know it's working. So then you continue to move forward. The only thing is over time, as you get really good at it, then you have the next question is, well, what's next? Okay, so what else can I do to make things even better? Because that's just human nature. And I've been through that as well. And I'm constantly doing that. It drives my wife insane. But at the same time, she kind of watches and she adapts what she wants to adapt. I don't force her on anything like that. And you couldn't anyway. She's a female. She's going to make her own decision, which you got to respect that. So, but yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, is this the right thing for me? And I have to deal with that too when I'm, talking to a person that's considering working with me. Is this the right thing? Did they have the confidence? Do they feel like they can do the things that they may need to do to change what they want to change to improve? It's not an easy process for anybody. And so, hats off to people that, they make the decision and then they just decide, okay, I'm going to do this and they move forward. Now, what also comes into play is decisions they made and it didn't work out. So that's always the other challenge. So that causes a lot of reluctance as well as an understatement.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I know for sure is that at being on a dedicated path towards longevity requires constantly reevaluating where you are. It's like being on a path of travel. So for example, if the airplane has a destination, it constantly adjusts its course because it gets moved around. And the same with the person. If they're moving towards the goal of longevity, they're constantly going to need to be some kind of adjustment. But what you said about facing the fear, that is critical. And that actually works in many different areas of the life, because
Yeah.
when we avoid something because some result out there like blood work could be so um, um, not something that we don't want to see, that is a huge kind of, it's a thing that stands in the way of progress.
Yeah.
So looking at that is critical, because then it will present the facts as they are. And when you know the facts, when you know where you're starting from, it's much easier to go somewhere where you go, where you want to go. And having that vision and a compelling future as to what's the point of doing that. That is from going from point A to point B, in my opinion. And I've always been a big proponent for optimal health, because when your physical body is optimally working, your mental health is also elevated, and you can do more, you can accomplish more, and as a result, your quality of life improves. It's a no-brainer. It just becomes difficult because environment oftentimes affects us. And what I say to people, like, you got to surround yourself with people of the like mind. If you are on a path of longevity, you got to hang out with other people who are also on that same trajectory and who really want to be the best they can be and extend their life for as long as possible.
I agree 100%. Yeah, for sure.
And right now, the medicine is moving in such a direction that our course of life could be extended. Our longevity could be, the length of lifespan is extending. And so, do you really want to chance that you're going to have extra 40 maybe years of your life, but you're not going to be in optimal health? Like, this is a really critical thing to think about, in my opinion. And your work confirms that there needs to be more information about this. There needs to be more kind of dedicated support, because, as you said, it is a long journey. It's not instant. It requires dedication, it requires commitment, it requires the vision. What were the best success stories in your experience in your work with clients that you just really lit up about and can't stop thinking about?
Well, I got a lot of those. One that was pretty unique when I was doing what I'm doing is I had a training facility for a while, for about 8 years, and so before I closed it because I was getting ready to do some travel with my wife, and she wanted to. And ironically, I closed it in 2019 in November, right before COVID. So it was God was looking out for me. I don't know, a higher level thing. But before I had closed it, though, I had a guy that came in. His name is David, older guy, late 60s or yeah, about 67, I think he was. And he come in walking into the facility and he was white as a sheet. And I'm just like, okay, so and he was kind of shaky, really nervous. And so he come up to me, he goes, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, come on." So I went in the office and I said, "Well, before we do anything, let me get some information on you. Can you fill out a questionnaire?" And he goes, I got to ask you a question. I'm like, okay. So he's like, I just had a liver transplant a year ago, and uh, I think I'm going to die because all I do is lay on the couch. I don't feel good about myself, and I don't know what to do. I'm getting really weak, and he went on all these different things, and I'm like, okay. So I like, are you on prescriptions? So he's on some medication for his liver, rapamycin for the transplant because that keeps the body from rejecting the organ. But he wasn't on anything else, blood pressure and some other things, which was, convenient. So I said, well, fill out the questionnaire, which he did. And so I had to get a little more history on him. And then I said, well, I'm not going to work with you at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call my medical teams that I work with, and I'm going to ask them, their opinion on this. And so he's like, he was kind of mad, he's frustrated. And I said, you know what, just being honest with you, but if they say yes, then I can help you because I know what I need to do. because he never had his hormone levels checked, so they were probably in the they were very low, and there's a whole mess that came with the lab work. So, anyways, sent it to my medical teams. They're like, yeah, we can help him. We'll be all right. So I'm like, okay. So I called him back. He was really happy about that, and so then we, got the lab work ordered, and everything was, like a moving target on all of his hormone levels were just totally out of sync. But he had some good baseline stats with, his liver function was good and kidneys and all that. So I said, all right. So and then we had to do resistance training because he was frail and weak. And so we started that. So this first day training, I could tell he was pretty frail and he was really nervous about stuff. So I said, well, we need to check your strength. So I had him do some basic movements, standing, and I could tell his balance wasn't super good. So I said, okay, we're going to start out with just, I want you to squat down on this chair. I'm going to stand here and watch how your form is on the bench. And so he went to squat down the bench. He's focusing on what he's doing, and then he couldn't get up. So he got very frustrated. He was very upset. And so I was like, okay, well, let me help you out. I go, we're going to do as many of these as we can till you get winded. And then we're going to keep repeating this process over time. You'll be surprised. But then he was really mad. So I'm like, it's not going to do you good to get mad. Your muscles have atrophied because you've been bedridden for quite a while. So, and you've been laying around. So, his attitude changed, and then his upper body was working that, and then I had to get his nutrition dialed in. He wasn't eating right, so we had to work on that. And I do a unique carb cycling strategy for that. And then he was coming in just like he's supposed to. Uh, we had 3 to 4 days a week, depending on his schedule. He had a business that he was running still, and so over time, everything started to change, and he was getting stronger and stronger. He was doing his food the way he wanted to. And then about, I don't know, I think it was, we got him on hormone therapy because his hormones were so depleted, we had to do therapy for him. And then the supplementation is part of that. Then it was about, I don't know, close to 8 weeks of working with him. He came in one day and it looked like he had a tan, like his color of his skin had changed. And I go, hey, you got some sun this weekend? I was thinking of Monday. He goes, well, no. Are you getting sun? He goes, no. I go, man, your skin looks totally different. He goes, yeah, I noticed that. And so apparently what has happened is his liver's really, with the hormones, everything working, changed all that back. And so then over time, next thing I know, he's a guy squatting 135 pounds for reps. He's 67. So it was quite a transition. He got mad when I closed the gym down. He got all mad at me and he was frustrated. But it's like, and I can't work with you at this point because, the circumstances were what they were. But then 6 months, I worked with him for about almost a year, but 6 months into it, he goes to Shands, which is the hospital that did the liver transplant. They hadn't seen him for 6 months because he has his checkup, and they were shocked. They were like, "Wow, what have you been doing?" So he explained it. So, anyways, that was a really unique experience, rewarding experience, and I still check on him today to see how things are going. He's still focused on doing what he's supposed to be doing, and everything's still good. So that's one of many. I mean, I don't know how many stories you want me to elaborate on, but there's, I got all kinds.
Wow, that is very inspirational story to go from being bedridden to fully lifting 130 pounds. That is
Yeah,
amazing.
I was pretty happy with that too. I was like, man, but he was pretty serious. He was determined. You got to have that. And so on the reluctant side, he was like, didn't know what to do. And I don't know how it happened, but somehow he found me, and then I guess I answered his questions. It wasn't really how he wanted it, but at the same time, I think it just made him more determined. Like, I'm going to fix this. So
Yeah, oftentimes people come up, he probably was fine before the liver transplant, or who knows. But when something like that happens, a big transition,
oh yeah,
health change, or something big, it seems so overwhelming. And oftentimes people can be resistant to change and reluctant to do anything because there's so much in the way. It seemed for that guy, it probably seemed like it was a mountain to climb to really get his body back into shape from being atrophied from all the sitting around. That is incredible. And the what it illustrates is that it requires a consistent support on that journey. Yes,
yeah,
you probably could do it by yourself, but it is much more difficult to do it by yourself and not with somebody who really knows what they're doing and supporting you there day in and day out. So that is a huge thing for all the service providers like this, coaches and other type of services that guide the person through the major transition that takes longer than a couple of months.
Well, yeah, one other one I'll just mention is I have a client, a husband and wife team I'm working with, and they thought they're pretty good shape. So, but they were referral from another client. So we talked and they're like, well, we want he sold his business and things are going well. So, obviously he wants to learn how to live longer, to enjoy it and all that. And it's like, okay. So we get the lab work done after he decides to work with me on both of them. And it was just horrible. I mean, he didn't even know it, but his A1C, which is, for diabetic measurements, was 10.8. So he's already diabetic. Glucose was like 240 after a 12-hour fast. And hormones were low. I mean, he had all kinds of issues in his lab. I had no idea. So I'm like, okay. So, again, we had him do the interview with the medical team to review his labs. They explained to him because he was pretty scared. He's like, "Oh, this is bad." Again, it's bad. I mean, you had a lot of things that you don't want to be having in your lab work, elevated homocysteine levels and other things. Then I can't get into details of it, but it wasn't good. So then he's nervous. He's like, "Okay, I'm in trouble." And I said, "No, you're not in trouble. You caught it, so we're going to fix it." So then he does his calls with the two different medical teams. And so we all got together on, okay, what's going to be the corrective protocol, which I quarterback all that. And then, we get to work, get the nutrition going, get the supplementation set up, because I include the supplements in the program. So it's delivered right to the door. And then, I do a detailed, what to do hour by hour strategy, because most people, they need clarity on what to do. Anyway, so we got working hard, and this guy again, and his wife had other issues, and so they were determined. And I'm sure the reluctance was like, okay, can we fix it? Because of the uncertainty. Because if they just stay with the medical community, I don't know how much they've been able to help them. But anyways, within 6 weeks, it was bad with his glucose and an A1C for his diabetes. So and he couldn't get on any medication right away because he had to get a doctor's appointment, to get that scheduled. But we got him on nutrition, and it automatically started reducing it within the first 2 weeks. And then they got a continuous glucose monitor on him after the third or fourth week. And then they finally we got him on metformin. That was the easiest thing we could get him on. But with the nutrition, and they got an exercise program going and supplementation going. And he also had a lot of gut issues. I had to deal with that with probiotics and prebiotics and different things that you can do to improve that. His continuous glucose, and I talked to him yesterday, is down to averaging 118 throughout the day. His continuous glucose. So he's in normal range now. So he's really excited to see what his A1C is going to be, because it's going to probably be, close to 50% less, give or take. I mean, you just don't know. But so he's excited, and he sees, okay, I can change this. And so what the end result is on this is you take back control of your health, and he's taking back control of his physique. You need to have muscle tissue to age as good as you would like to. You want to be mobile. You don't want to be frail and not be able to move. You need that mobility. So he's doing resistance training, put a program together for him and his wife. And again, we're doing that in stages because it's all new. But he feels himself, his skin is getting tighter. He's getting, he feels his muscle reactivating. And so he's really excited about the future now, even though he was scared to death because his labs come back so bad. So what this means is you can change things, but you got to know what to do to change them if you want to change it quickly so you feel better about the result. A lot of people just suffer in the medical community with their prescriptions because, as you mentioned, they're not solving the root cause of the problem. So what I'm working with my medical team is, let's get the root cause, get that solved, because then we don't need the prescriptions. Because unfortunately, the prescriptions, they cause, the side effects. And the reason a lot of medical people just do the prescriptions is because they do not believe people will change their ways or make the lifestyle changes. So you're going to do what you're going to do. So take this, it'll kind of minimize the pain, so to speak, or the discomfort, which is really a long, drawn out death process. So
That is very interesting. The fact that medical community does not believe in people, that is kind of a sad fact. But it is a system, and we know that systems have been known to not work properly as well as we wish them to work. And so, what could people do immediately right now to take small steps to really getting their health under control if they feel like they're not quite there yet or they don't know how to start? What would be the first and the smallest steps they could take?
Well, the first step in my opinion, the first step is you got to change your nutrition. You can't be eating the processed food. There's no fiber in it. It's tearing up your gut. It ruins the gut microbiome. It increases your omega-6 levels, which is another inflammatory marker, your omega-9 levels. So get rid of the processed food. So stop eating fast food. Get selective about what you put in your mouth. Eat whole, fresh foods. That's where you get the fiber. That's where you get the better nutrients. I would definitely recommend all organic meat. If you're going to have red meat, you want to have grass-finished red meat, not just regular red meat, because personally, it's kind of toxic with what they do to the cows. So try to get natural grass-finished red meat if you're going to eat it. I'm a fan of red meat, and it has a lot of good nutrients in it. But make sure your proteins are organic as much as you can. Okay. And now one thing about organic though, just for people that don't realize it, it's more expensive. Okay, but that's true. But at the same time, it lasts a lot longer. If you put a piece of meat that's off the shelf in the refrigerator within 3 to 4 days, it turns rancid. You get organic meat, it's going to be good for 10 days minimum. And then after you cook it, it's good for another 3, 4 days. So you're going to eat it. And also don't get concerned about how much you need to be eating. People eat way too much. And if you're constantly eating all the time, the snacking thing is ridiculous. It's not helping you because you have your digestive system's working all the time. That's just causing more stress to the digestive system. It's causing more stress to the body. It's not going to help you long term, but it also speeds up aging. And so I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting and then fasting on top of that. So first step, change your nutrition. Focus on eating whole, real foods. You need to watch your carbohydrate intake to help manage insulin. Don't have a lot of starchy carbs. Have vegetables that have the fiber and less carbs. You're going to get a better response. And what this does, it keeps your insulin down a lot more consistently with the intermittent fasting. And when you keep insulin down, you don't have the cravings. And also, insulin's toxic to the system anyways. You can't have it elevated all day long. That's what's causing a lot of the inflammation on top of everything else. So do that. Do some intermittent fasting. You could do a 16-8, so 16-hour fast, 8-hour window of eating, 12-12. But once you get good at your intermittent fasting, then what I also like to suggest to people is to do a 24-hour fast. Again, this is just water. You can have coffee or tea or whatever, but just to do a water fast. And what happens when you do that, and by doing the intermittent fasting in the stages you're doing, then it won't be so difficult to do. That's why I'm suggesting that. But if you do a 24-hour fast, what that does is helps to get rid of any undigested proteins that are floating in your system. So it clears that out because it cannibalizes things for energy. It takes senescent or inactive cells that are dying anyways, and it breaks them down and uses those for energy. It cannibalizes those. So now you're potentially getting rid of cancer cells. And then because of the stress on the body, this causes more stem cells to be created by the bone marrow. So you're helping doing a cleanse in an indirect way. So that's a free thing. This is all free, just making adjustments. Then you need to do some exercise. And the best exercise is going to be resistance training. This helps to preserve your muscle tissue. Resistance training is also more ideal for your hormones. Your hormones are the messengers that tell your body how to operate. So the more you get your hormones working the right way, the better you're going to feel and the better your body's going to respond. So resistance training, and that can be 3 days a week. Then have to be anything fancy, 30 to 45 minutes at a time. Have it, need a strategy is something I do with people. Get that going. And it's going to strengthen the joints. It's going to keep you more mobile. And you keep your muscle tissue on. You don't lose it so rapidly. Then on top of that, you need to get good sleep. And I would recommend people track their sleep. And that's what I do. I use an Oura ring, which is this little thing right here to track my sleep because once you understand the importance of sleep, it's important for hormone levels. Okay. It's important for your recovery. It's important for your brain to flush itself. And if you keep shortchanging that, it's going to cause all kinds of other health issues. It raises your cortisol level. This stops fat burning. Also, it causes all kinds of problems with your hunger and nutrition. So work on your sleep. Typically 7 to 8 hours is ideal, but you want to make sure you're getting quality REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and quality deep sleep because deep sleep is the restorative sleep. So that's where I focus on. And as we get older, it's a little work getting that to work the right way because you're naturally going to have less of it. So you want to focus on what you can do to improve it. And that's what I'm working on now for myself and other clients to get that deep sleep because you feel so much better. I mean, when I get a good 8 hours sleep and about 45 minutes of deep sleep, I'm bulletproof the next day. I'm like, okay, I got a lot I can get done today. This is another thing. And then on top of that, you need to get lab work done. And you may start with just some basic labs to check your kidney, liver function, and that, and your glucose levels, and triglycerides are important. But one thing I do recommend people also check is your ALT, which stands for alanine transaminase. And what that is that's a liver marker. And if your ALT is under 25, you've got good liver function, the liver's not being overwhelmed, and you got good mitochondria function. So if it's over 25, then you're starting to have the first symptoms of insulin resistance as one marker, okay, let alone your glucose readings checking that. So, and people have, and doctors don't even, they actually raise the ALT, which used to be, a high of 29. Now they raise it to 40 because people are so far out of range. So check that. And that you can drop that down just by, again, cutting back sugar. You really have to minimize sugar. Now, when we talk about sugar, we're talking about fructose. Fructose is very damaging to the whole body, to the capillaries, liver, etc. Now, fructose is in fruit, yes, but when you eat whole fruit only, you have the fiber, so you don't absorb as much fructose as what people would think. But when you have sugar added to orange juice, added to your processed food, now you're getting all kinds of fructose. And then you put in high fructose corn syrup, which has a higher fructose rating than regular table sugar. Table sugar is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. Okay. When you get high fructose corn syrup, it can go as high as 55 to 70% fructose. You're just creating all kinds of toxic problems. And this also causes issues with your hunger hormones too, like leptin and ghrelin. Leptin says, hey, I'm full. Ghrelin says, hey, I need to eat. So people they have to feel like they have to eat all the time because of the ghrelin and the elevated insulin, and it's typically carbohydrate based. So that's a kind of a long-winded scenario. I mean, I can go into more depth, but I mean, that's some simple things. And if you do them, you're going to feel better quicker and you will lose body fat. Now, losing weight's one thing, but losing body fat is where the big win is, not weight.
It is not very complicated. Eat healthy, eat organic, watch what you're eating, remove all junk food, get proper sleep, get exercise. Resistance is my favorite exercise type as well.
Mhm.
And track your sleep if you can. I love Oura Ring. I wear that all the time.
Uh,
And also get your blood work done. It's really that simple. So the only thing that people are reluctant or resistant to is because that actually has been talked about for years. Nothing changed about this advice. Exercise, sleep, and proper nutrition and hydration, that's been standard for as long as the bodybuilding community has been in existence. So that has merit. What would you say to somebody who may have tried to lose weight, but they're still unable to make any changes or any difference in that? What could be the cause of that kind of obstacle?
yeah, I get a lot of that. So like when I was training people, we'd have weigh-ins once a week. And there's nothing worse when you're weighing in females and she comes in 2 pounds heavier than she was last week. I mean, they just look at you like, I'm gonna kill you. I mean, it's not good. So I had to really start digging deep to find out what I need to do for consistency. And so what it boils down to is if you're having a problem losing the weight that you want to lose, you need to evaluate your nutrition side. And typically it's going to start on a simple format would be you're taking too many carbohydrates. So let me explain. If you're trying to, cut your calories and all these other things, you can do that, but you can end up losing muscle tissue. So when you're eating carbohydrates and your body, your muscles and your liver are full of glucose, because that's where carbohydrates are designed to go. You eat them, it's supposed to reload the liver and the muscles. But if they're full, they have nowhere to go. And what insulin is, it's a fat storage hormone. It's a storage hormone, period. So any excess that you're taking in is going to automatically be stored. I was always curious, like, how do these people get so massively huge? Because I mean, it's like, how does this happen? But that's what happens. The insulin's working all the time, and it's pushing those nutrients into the fat cell, and it gets worse and worse, and then the cells split, and then you get more of them, etc. So look at your carbohydrate intake. Look at your sugar intake because you've got to get insulin out of the way. So let me talk about insulin. Now, if you keep eating carbohydrates throughout the day, like a lot of people do, like the standard American diet, it's called SAD. If you do that, then you have elevated insulin every time you have a meal that has 5 more grams of carbohydrates. So you don't burn fat. Your body only uses one energy system at a time: glucose, which is the quick energy of sugars and carbs, or fat. Fats last for 4 to 6 hours. So if you want to burn fat and have consistent energy and not crave foods, you got to get insulin down and out of the way. That's where people what they realize is, over time, is when they go to bed, the insulin's out of the way. That's when they actually burn some fat. Your hormones need cholesterol to rebuild cells, so that's when the best fat burning is going to happen. So when you wake up, you're still burning fat, which is great, and you keep your cortisol level down. So if you start your breakfast with 15, 20, 30 grams of carbs or more, you just shut off fat burning for the rest of the day because your body going, okay, now we're going to switch back to glucose. We're going to work off of that. And so as soon as you're 2 or 3 hours later, as the insulin's coming down, your energy starts to get a little lower. You're not feeling as good energy. Then your body's saying, hey, we need to eat something. So now we get a snack. You don't need to be snacking. That's the worst thing you can do because now you're causing more problems with your digestive system. Okay, long term. So, and don't get me wrong, you can snack from time to time, but again, these things need to be strategic. So that's what you need to take an evaluation of is getting insulin out of the way. So this is going to be, requiring being low carb for a period of time, but you can't stay low carb all the time. It's hard to do anyways. So you reward yourself with a carbohydrate reload day. And the way I recommend taking carbohydrates in is at night, okay, because you burned fat most of the day, you kept your carbohydrates very low, then have some carbohydrates to replenish the muscles and liver, if you feel depleted. Now, you can go without carbohydrates for a good amount of time and get great benefits from it, and it's not going to hurt you, okay? You're just burning fat as your main energy system. But you'll have to look at your caloric intake of protein and fats because that's what you're basically eating. And some people are fat averse because of what's been, promoted over the last 20 some years or longer. But your fats are actually good. And you just need to understand, okay, what's my strategy with fats? And ironically, all animal protein contains fat. So if you're eating animal meat as your source of protein, you already have fat built into it. So now you're already getting it. So then you can add some additional fats like the fruit fats, olives, avocados, coconut oil. I mean, and they're saying, well, coconut oil has saturated fat. Well, that's all, again, look at how much you're really going to eat of that. Let's be real. Okay. So keep your carbohydrate more managed if you want to lose body fat. And you'll be surprised how much faster that will happen. Now, there'll be a transition period because your body's used to burning the quick energy of sugars and carbs. So there'll be if you go low carb for 3 or 4 days, then you're going to kind of hit the wall. If you hit the wall, it'll change. So just understand that it's temporary because as soon as you get through it, bam, you're like nothing ever happened. So, all right.
Yeah,
So hopefully that gives you some guidance on that.
definitely that the listeners should get an idea that it is possible, and probably the blood work can help to identify where those insulin markers are from day to
Yeah.
day or from month to month. Yeah, so it is possible, and but all it does, it requires dedication and a vision where you are going with that.
Also, you got to find the right people to work with. So you have to be your own, no matter what you do, you have to be your own advocate on all areas. And so you need to be informed as much as possible. So do your own research. That's what I do as well, because you have to sort through all the crap.
Yeah, as we said at the beginning, it's overwhelming, but it is possible. And usually I ask guests to say what the bigger message is behind what else you want to share. But I think this whole episode's been a message for longevity, that it is possible to live longer and healthier. It is possible to improve your health, and all the tools are available. All the tools and systems and information is right there. The only thing you have to do is decide to go onto that path of health and longevity and optimize your performance that way. There is really nothing else in a way. The only thing that's in a way would be yourself. So is there anything else you would even add to that?
Well, I think that's really spot on. I mean, if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. So you got to say, okay, how important is it for you, your people you care about, your family members, being there for your grandchildren, or being able to really enjoy your wealth? Because if you're doing well financially and you're sitting in a wheelchair on an oxygen tank, it doesn't matter if you get 10 million or 10 billion, whatever, you're not going to, it only benefits your heirs or whoever you're going to donate it to. So take the challenge, so to speak, and raise the bar. I'm going to get more out of life, and here's how I'm going to do it, and seek out the solutions that you need because the rewards look astounding to me. I mean, if you can control aging, if you slow down aging, you slow down disease. If you can control that at a certain level, I mean, nothing's totally controllable, but if you can control the controllables, so to speak, you call the shots down the road and you don't have to deal with all the expensive insurance issues and the different medical problems that pop up and less likely to have a heart attack or a stroke. I mean, just enjoy life then. It's not on the radar with these other problems.
Yes, health is your most valuable currency because health buys you time, and
Mhm.
time is all we have really. And there's another level to this work of doing longevity because when you optimize your physical body, your mindset improves, and
Yep.
then you can start looking at actually psychological patterns that may be getting in the way of health because sometimes certain things get into our system, get into our body, thoughts, beliefs, ideas that prevent us from fully expressing ourselves. But if you start with the physicality, you have a much better chance of looking at anything else that might be causing harm in some way, form, or
Yep.
shape. So there's many benefits. I hope listeners really got a clear idea as to what they can do now and what the potential is of that. And I would ask you where people can find more about you, but I see there is a QR code on your screen. And but if you for the listeners on the podcast for the audio, and even though I will put the links in the description, but where can people find more about you?
Well, you can find me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, YouTube. So you can find me pretty easily that way. You can also contact me via email, Arman, Arman, at Elite Exec Method, ELITEEXECMETHOD.com. You can contact me that way. But again, and if you do a search on my name, Arman Eckelbarger, I have a website for that too, which has there's a lot of good information on there. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to find if you do the search. And if you do a Google search just on my name, there's plenty of stuff pops up from that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of this information and for being a guest on this show. And I hope listeners really got the value out of this. So thank you everybody for listening and for watching, and we will see you next time.